Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the podcast. This is your host, Mariana, speaking, and you are listening to the Commitment to Growth podcast. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you're doing great. I hope you find yourself well as you are tuning into this episode, wherever you are tuning in from and whatever time of the day you are tuning in from. I hope your week is off to a good start. And if you, like me, are in one of the areas that has recently been hit a little bit harder by COVID and your local government has implemented some more restrictions, I just want to say that I hope you are taking care of yourself. I hope that you are having slightly lower expectations for yourself, because I know that this is something that has just felt so never ending, and it feels still like there is no light at the end of the tunnel sometimes, but I promise there is, and we just have to keep our heads up. We have to stay together and keep trudging forward. I know that it feels hopeless and it can feel like this is never going to end at times, but the end is near, and we just have to keep taking care of ourselves. We have to keep doing the things necessary to help us keep our heads up, to help us keep moving forward, to help us keep finding the will to keep engaging in life, because life is so beautiful. And I hope that one day we will look back and realize that this was just a minor bump in the road on this big journey that we're all on. So if you are enduring these crazy times right now, and if you are facing some newly implemented harsher restrictions around COVID, I hope that you're doing okay and that you are committing to doing the things that bring you joy and keep your mental health in check, because that is what will trudge you through the rest of this uncertain path. So let's stick together. Let's keep motivating each other. Let's keep encouraging each other. And please take care of yourselves, because that is the most important thing you can do for your health and for your ultimate well being. So I'm sending you lots of love if this resonates with you at all. So, I am really excited to be sharing this conversation with all of you, because this is the first interview that I'm hosting on the show since the rebrand of the podcast into the Commitment to Growth podcast. And I could not think of a better way to kickstart this series of interviews with a better guest other than Dr. Toya L. Sampson, who I am talking to today on the show. Toya is a wife, a mother. She is a board certified OBGYN based out of California. And she is also the recent new founder of the company By Default. So that's BUY, By Default, which is basically a service online that seeks to connect Black individuals with Black-owned businesses that cater their services to specifically Black people. She talks about how her experience as a Black woman coming from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean to the US to pursue her medical education, how this illustrated for her the immense gaps that there are in the service industry, in the realm of products that are made specifically for Black people, and the gaps that exist that are impeding Black people from accessing them in terms of the algorithms that our social medias are very much catered towards, and also just how these products actually manage to make it into kind of the big, more well-known stores, and how their representation on the shelves of those stores is so low that it really puts Black people at a disadvantage when it comes to specific products that they need for different things. So her business is all around supporting Black-owned businesses and supporting Black individuals in connecting with these services to get what they need. So whether that is health and beauty services, whether it's photography, whether it's travel, whether it's medical services, whether it's an accountant, whether it's clothing, there's stationery, there's like so many things. I'm just scrolling through the directory here and it's mind-blowing. And I love the design of this business. But what I love even more is Toya's story and how she got to doing what she is doing today. Truly the definition of superwoman. Like, not only is she a doctor, but she's a business owner. Can you get any better than that? So I am going to let her speak to you and speak her story, because I think she does a great job, better than I could ever do. And I'm going to hand the mic over to her. So Before we do that, I do also just want to take a moment to acknowledge that I am recording this episode from the land of the Lekwungen peoples, who are represented by the Songhees and the Esquimalt nations, as well as the Wasanich peoples, who are represented by the Sartlip, Pauquichin, Sayout, Saikum, and Malahat nations. I am extremely privileged to be here. I feel so grateful to be back here in Victoria, in Saanich, pursuing my university education, especially as a former uninvited settler to the land of the Nahuatl peoples that is now colonially known as Mexico City, and being able to come here and reside on this land again as an uninvited settler and visitor. I'm so honored to be learning from everything that these Indigenous communities are teaching us. I am so overwhelmed by all of their enthusiasm and their love and their care for all of us as we go through this journey of learning about Indigenous sovereignty and why it is so important to support that aspect of Indigenous education. So I hope that if you're listening to one of these land acknowledgements once again, because you've tuned into the podcast multiple times, you've gone and done some of the work outside of your own time to educate yourself. But if you haven't, I highly encourage you to, because it's something that is so buried, but also so integral to our history and something that really needs to be addressed. So without further ado, let's get right into this conversation with Dr. Toya L. Sampson. Dr. Toya, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. How are we doing?
I am fine. Thank you so much for having me, Mariana. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm very excited to have you too. This has been a long time coming, and I have
Yes,
so much to ask you with so little time. So I don't
yes.
want to delay I don't want to delay our conversation too much. So why don't we get right into it? And
Mhm.
if you could start off with just telling us a little bit about you and your story and the milestones and the things that got you to where you are today, I think we would all love to hear that. So I'll hand you the
Right.
mic.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I am Dr. Toya, and I am originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. I am an OBGYN by trade. I'm a wife, a mother, and a new baby entrepreneur. I have a business, a curated directory of Black-owned businesses and Black professionals that cater to the Black community. So that's my new venture. And yeah, that's me in a very small nutshell. I have a lot of stories. So which story do you want to hear?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, like I think I lost track on my hands, like how many things you just mentioned. That's
Right.
awesome. I think what I would love to start with is what led you to becoming an entrepreneur, and what were some of the biggest barriers that you experienced as a Black identifying woman in the entrepreneurial world as you got started.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I didn't have a typical, well, who knows what typical is anyway, but entrepreneurship came to me because of the actual business itself, not because I was like, I want to venture out on my own and stop working for the man and all that. I still work for the
Mm-hmm.
man, right? In
Mm-hmm.
the in that sense, I still have a full-time job, and it was more because of my desire to create the directory and eventually the marketplace,
Mm-hmm.
because it was important to me. And I didn't want to wait around for somebody else to create it because I knew I had my vision. It was a very specific vision.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to, I was just like, I will just do it myself. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why I did it. And the story behind why I created actually goes way back. It
Okay.
was when I was 10. I first came to this country, to United States, because I know you're in Canada.
I am.
I first came, yes, and I was visiting my uncle, and I was in his apartment. I was just looking around, being nosy, and I picked
Mm-hmm.
up a bottle of shampoo, and it said on it
Mm.
for normal hair. And just remember being
Oh.
very confused. I was like,
Mm.
what does normal mean? And, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a place where I was the majority. Almost everybody in Trinidad has some level of melanin. Half the
Mm.
population is Black. So I didn't have that burden of knowing what they meant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember being just confused. So I quickly forgot about it because, let's face it, I was 10. I did not really think much about it after that. And
Mm-hmm.
then, I went home and I came back to the States for university. And, when you live here and you're in it, you really quickly realize what they meant by normal, right? It's not me, right? So that realization came pretty quickly. And the experiences around that continued, the feeling of otherness, this that
Mm-hmm.
we are as Black people exotic, just not normal, not the ideal, not the standard. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a theme that we have to deal with. And I've
Mm-hmm.
experienced that, many times. I and this is, traveling. I've had
Mm-hmm.
people try to take pictures of me, like if I was some kind of sideshow. I have had women like walk up to me face to face, not make eye contact, and reach out and try and examine my hair. And, you
Wow.
know, and I wasn't actually the first person that she tried that with because I was in a group. So she was just
Mm-hmm.
going around trying to examine and see, like if she was in a zoo, right?
Oh
So
my
these
God.
are,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So, that kind of idea is perpetuated, and that's what you have to deal with. And that kind of, the feeling of confusion and just like discomfort that I felt when I was 10, it just came back, right? It's like this is what they meant, that I am not normal. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing about it is, in my life, I am normal. I am the standard, right? Everybody in my immediate circle is Black. My husband, my family, my son, everybody's Black. And to me, I am the standard. I am normal. My hair is normal. Everything about me is normal because this is
Mm-hmm.
just, I'm the lead in my life, right?
Yeah, I love that.
So, yeah, there's just that kind of disconnect. So, you know, as we getting into 2020, 2021, a lot of people are kind of waking up to this. If we're not going to wait for other people to create things for us, we're going to do it ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So there are lots of, Black creators that are making the things that we need specifically for us with us in mind. But when you're looking for them, they're everywhere, like scattered, right? The marketing is not really there. You have to go on YouTube and watch a video. You have to read a blog. It's on Instagram. So that didn't work for me because I hate all that stuff. I don't like
Mm-hmm.
having to watch a long video to get to the point.
Yeah.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
like reading in blogs and all the information is at the end. So I really wanted a centralized place where I can find the things that I need from brands that really view me as the ideal, right? Like when
Mm.
they're creating this product, when they're creating this service, they say, okay, the ideal client is somebody that looks like me. So I wanted to, centralize those places on a really user-friendly platform. And I didn't see that out there. There are lots of directories for Black-owned businesses, but they just focus on just promoting Black-owned businesses. I wanted something where the user was the focus. Like you go
Mm.
on the directory and you feel celebrated, you feel seen, you feel normal.
Yeah.
Everything is Black by default, and that's where the name comes from. 'Cause the name of the directory is by default, and the idea
Oh, I
is,
love that.
it's just Black by default because we're the standard. So
Yes.
that's
Yes.
that's my story. That's how I got into entrepreneurship. It's because I wanted to create this one specific thing, and with that comes everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much in there that I want to take apart about your business
Yeah,
and about your experience. First thing I'll say though is that I think that's an ingenious business idea because at the end of the day, what makes a business successful in my eyes at least is the customer experience, right?
right.
And if instead we are shifting the focus, like you said, to I'm tailoring these products to you for you because you
Right.
are a member of society and not just somebody that I want as a clientele, as somebody who's giving me
Right.
as someone who's giving me money, right?
Exactly. Right.
um that is so important and such an important way to establish that community within the people that are
Mhm.
buying from you.
Yeah.
As an aside, one of the many things I want to ask you from what you just said is, so so you see this bottle of shampoo, you come back to the US a couple of years later and you
Yeah.
feel othered. How did
Hmm.
that impact your up your career here, the career
Yeah.
that you chose to take on, and how
Hmm.
you kind of carried yourself
Yeah.
through society until you decided that, you know what, I am not other, I am my own standard. How
Right.
what was the kind of timeline of those events that led you to where you are
Yeah.
now?
So
Mm-hmm.
that's a really great question. And, I don't have a great answer only because
Mm-hmm.
I come from a place of privilege in that I grew up and I was fully grown when I came here. I was
Mm-hmm.
18. Like, I mean, not grown, 18-year-olds aren't fully grown. But in
Mm-hmm.
terms of my identity as somebody who is Black, I was always very firm in that. And then I went to Howard. So I went to historically Black college or university. So
Mm-hmm.
again, I was in this cocoon of Blackness for the entire time that I was in undergrad and medical school, because I went there for medical school as well. And then my training was pretty diverse. But that's when it first hit me, right? When I was in training,
Mm-hmm.
because the stereotype of the angry Black woman, that's when it affected me the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my job,
Mm-hmm.
and this is me being OBGYN, I am very, this is, regimented, like we need to do this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do it now because, people's lives are at stake, right? So
Totally.
when when you come across that kind of personality, especially it's a lot of women, a lot of women in the
Mm-hmm.
field, and you expect everybody to be, oh, happy and smiley and be fun. And like I am like that socially, but work
Mm-hmm.
is work. And, I am that way. And because I'm very serious about my job. And, so it was difficult for me to be in that environment because I was constantly being misunderstood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it was just this like, well, why she doesn't smile that much and she's not really that nice. And it's just like, well, while I may not be smiling, is the patient okay? Right.
Yeah.
So, let's
Mm-hmm.
focus on what's important. So,
Absolutely.
that's something that I did have to struggle with. And that was the first time that I had to really deal with that because of the privilege of Trinidad and Howard. Um, you know, I I didn't have to deal with any of that. And then residency, that was my training. It was, I always say it's the best and worst 4 years of my life. I was,
Mhm.
I was very well trained, but it was tough. And, when I came out of that, I, kind of knew how to deal with things like that. So it became less of an issue once I graduated and then moved out here, and here being California, where I
Mhm.
continued to practice. So, the experiences of me growing up and then going through that and training, it kind of prepared me for pretty much anything. So,
Mhm.
of course, we continue to grow and learn and have different experiences, but I feel like those, those things kind of helped me get through anything else I'd have to deal with in terms of how race affects, my job and different things like that.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah.
Mhm. Do you feel that the experiences that you endured at Howard and as your time as a resident, and then carrying over into your current medical practice, do you feel that it was almost like a facade that you had to put on, or some kind of shield that you were using to make yourself look more credible in the eyes of others?
So that's the thing. That's why I had so much trouble because I wouldn't do that. Like I didn't quote unquote play the game,
Oh,
right? And it
wow.
was tough because I had comparisons. Like I was in a class of 6 people, and there
Mhm.
were 3 women and 3 men, which is unusual for a residency of OBGYN. It's mainly just women, but we were a very
Mhm.
diverse class with diverse race, sex, everything. But the other 2 women were that kind of, they knew how to play the game, let's just say that. And I did
Mm.
not feel the need to, because I never had to. And I was just like, I'm
Mm.
me, I'm just going to be me. And that's where the problem came from. um, Beyond
Wow.
that, it wasn't really just like playing the game. It was just I refused to be unhappy.
Mm,
So I just modeled myself so that I would be happy. Like it was a choice. Like I intentionally was like, I am going to be happy, whatever has to happen for that to happen. Fine, I'm going to continue being how I am at work and taking care of patients the best I know how. But, I'm not going to let little things bother me. And it ended up being fine. And being out here in California is a lot different than being on the East Coast. I know you don't have no idea what any of that means, but
mhm. Somewhat of
it
an
is
idea, yes.
yeah, it is different. So it was easier for me to, just be me out
Hmm.
here. It is a lot
Hmm.
easier.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. That is really incredible and also really saddening to hear at the same time. And the
yeah.
reason why for me these conversations are so important to have is because outside of being a podcast host at school,
Hmm.
I began an initiative with three other girls, and
Hmm.
we are about to start offering workshops on inclusivity and diversity. And one
Mm.
of my sections that I'm teaching is just like kind of your 101 intro course to what racism is, what sexism is,
Hmm.
xenophobia, all those all encompassing terms that are thrown
Right.
around nowadays. And I think the biggest issue that comes up, and as the person who, as myself, being somebody who is teaching these workshops, there's
Right.
always the kind of imposter syndrome of who am I to be
Hmm.
speaking on the experiences of others when
Hmm.
you know I feel like I'm in a privileged position because two of the other girls who are teaching the
Hmm.
workshops with me they're Canadian, they're white,
Right.
and I'm Latina, so
Right.
there are things that I have endured that they may not have, and I feel that just that little piece in the eyes of the people taking the workshops makes me
Right.
slightly more credible. But
Not
even
slightly.
then,
You're
right?
not giving yourself enough credit. It makes you a lot more.
Thank you. Thank you. But
Yeah.
even still, I feel this kind of line that I'm overstepping because I'm like, well, no,
Hmm.
who am I to be speaking on the experiences of others? But you speaking about this and hearing it from your perspective that you didn't feel like you had to put on a facade, or you chose not to, I should
Right.
say, but still you knew that other people in your class who also identified as Black were, because it was this kind of, call it a survival instinct, call it a
Right.
desire to be
It
seen as
was.
credible. Um,
Yeah.
my coworker described it perfectly. She was like, "We are the workers at the airport on like the runway who have the lights and they're just like
Right.
pointing at the
Yeah.
airplane where to go." What I'm trying to do with these conversations is say, I'm speaking, to these people's experiences, but not
Hmm.
for them. And
Right.
you telling your experience is incredible because like
Hmm.
it's living proof that this is something that affects a lot of people, and it affects how you
Yes.
carry yourself um as a professional, and nobody should ever have to feel like they have to put on a facade to be seen as
Yeah.
validated by the people that they're serving. So
Yeah.
um that's that's tough, and I'm really sorry to
Yeah.
hear that. Hmm.
Yeah, well, it's kind of as sad as it is, it's kind of life, right? Like this is what we have to do to survive. And I think it's easier when you are in medicine as opposed to like if I was just an entrepreneur, I think it would probably have been worse because, I have the standard that of exams, right? Like everybody learns the same thing. I graduated from a top residency. Like I'm actually really good at my job. So
Hmm.
you can only use that stuff so much. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of people who have really bad situations in medicine and it's terrible. And I'm not in that situation currently, but
Hmm.
there's still, I feel like in other industries, it's probably worse than
Hmm.
with us, just because at the very least, we're all very highly educated at the very least.
Hmm.
Whereas in another industry, I don't use the word industry like television or anything like that, but you know what I mean.
Hmm.
Um, there's this like question, well, are you qualified? Are you this? Are you that? So I feel like it's probably even worse. But yeah, that's kind of just what we have to do to survive and to stay sane. It's unfortunate, but you know, that's why
Yeah.
safe spaces are very important. And
Yes, of
it was
course.
also, yeah, really important for me to not just have my website as a website, it's a platform. And
Mm,
it's from the imagery to the types of brands that are represented. When a Black person goes there, they feel seen, they feel represented, they feel catered to, they feel happy and joyful. And all of that is intentional because I know we have to deal with these things on the outside. So whenever you need a break, you just come to By Default. You see some happy Black people just being themselves. And then
mm-hmm,
you can feel joyful and happy, and then you lift it up and you can deal with XYZ that you have to deal with in your regular life.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
yeah.
So, um, well, thank you for, first of all, for sharing all of that. And what I want to ask you now, shifting over to the entrepreneurial side of your
Hmm.
career, um,
Hmm.
you began this business with the vision of creating a more inclusive platform, like you very
Right.
well defined it, for Black individuals who want that
Hmm.
space as a safe haven, we'll call it.
Right.
How how are you kind of shifting the way that Black individuals are represented in the media with your business to change that, the many common notions that as outsiders
Right.
we receive from, I guess, the predominantly white media? what are
Right.
what are the notions that you are hoping to change with how you represent Black individuals in your business?
Yeah, that's a really good question. All of them. So the main thing for me is that, and I hate to say this term because I feel like it's kind of one of those things that it's like a buzzword now or buzz term,
Mm.
that we are
Mhm.
not a monolith, but we really aren't. There are a wide range of Black people that like to do all sorts of things. So, when you see a Black person in the media, it's usually a very narrow, set of things that you're going to
Mhm.
see,
Yeah.
and you don't see that variation. And most importantly, you don't see normal, right? You don't see just like a regular Joe or Jamal, if you want to say, right? You just like,
Uh-huh. Mhm.
right? And it's like we can be an athlete, you can be a singer, or you can just be a regular person working a regular 9 to 5 and still be
Yeah.
worthy of, you know, being portrayed and all of that, right? So
Mhm.
just having that varied representation is important. And I have a series that I do every Monday on my Instagram platform where I post a video or photo about Black joy, just because, for no reason,
Mm.
just to
Mhm.
be joyful. And I specifically look for, yes, a lot of it is singing and dancing because, of course, that's joyful, but I specifically look for images and videos that are outside of that. And it's for that reason, right?
Mm.
So even for sometimes it's hard for us to internalize and to see what's possible for us, right? So I had the last one I posted, it was a girl on a beach in St. Martin, just like loving life and being happy. So Black people travel. We go to nice places, so it's just nice to see. And, you're not just going to come and see Black people dancing and singing because that's what you kind of expect. And that's what you think about when you think about Black joy. But Black
Mm.
joy is anything, it's just allowing us to be, and that's it, with no kind of external forces, no expectations, just live.
Yeah, it's human
Um,
joy, right?
exactly,
Mhm.
exactly.
Mhm.
So, that having that series is really important to me. And it's kind of how I go about with my branding and, the look for everything that I do. It's just, we are regular humans, just like everybody else.
Yes, exactly. I
Yeah,
I love that approach because
yeah.
it is so representative of the fact that, it's not like we, as Black people, we have certain joys, and as Latinos we have
Hmm.
certain joys. Like, we
Right,
are all living the collective human experience, and just like
right,
someone who is of Chinese origin might experience joy, we experience joy in very similar ways, or we find joy
right,
in very similar things. We also feel pain in very similar things. And I think that is
right.
so important to eliminate this idea of otherness, um
Yes.
and of seeing, like, what you said at the beginning struck me so much, this idea of like this exoticness, um
Yeah.
and what you're doing, I think that is bringing such a beautiful message of saying, like, hey, we also find joy in that morning cup of coffee and in seeing our
Right.
kids grow up and stuff. It's not just
Right.
what is seen in the media.
Right.
And I think that's really beautiful. That's really
No,
beautiful.
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Are you allowed to share with us what kind of products your company
Mhm.
provides for the people that come to you?
Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
it's not, I actually don't provide anything. And so it's a
Okay.
third
Okay.
party, yeah. So
Gotcha.
it's really that I collect the brands that are creating these amazing products and providing these services. So I right now it's a directory. So
Okay.
I reach out to the different companies, I ask them to be listed. And the reason that I didn't just like pull random things, I really wanted to do it in partnership with the business owners is because I wanted to, again, for the user experience, I wanted to be really user friendly. So a lot of the directories that are out there, you see just a one line description and a business logo, and you don't really know what the business is about. You can't really see what they offer. So I wanted to use images and copy and stuff from the website itself, things that were copyrighted. So I
Mm.
didn't want to just like go take people's stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
basically asked them, hey, can I pull your information so I can put it in this one place so that the user can basically, it's like window shopping. And
Mm.
the way the pages are set up, it's like if you are on a website shopping, like if you're on Shopify, if you're on Amazon, it's set
Mm-hmm.
up that way so that you can really feel like, oh, I feel like I know what these people are about. I can kind of get a brief idea of what they sell. Let me go to the website, and then you click and it takes you so you can, when you go there, you're gonna buy. Like you're intentional that this is what I want to look at and I'm gonna go shop.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want it to just be about hair and makeup because that's
Mm.
another box we get put into because it's the thing that's the most different than everybody else, right? So even with
Mm.
other ethnicities like Latinas and, people of Asian descent, even though there are differences and you guys have melanin and we all do, your
Mm-hmm.
hair is still a little bit straighter. It's a little bit different. The melanin usually is not as dark. So it's,
Mm-hmm.
we that differentiates us the most usually. So when you think about things that are quote unquote black, it tends to be hair and makeup. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want it to just be that, even though those things are important. I wanted it to be a listing of products and services that we need to live our best lives. And that means entirely. So there
Mm.
are the travel sites on there, there are coaches, therapists, there's a doctor directory, there's a professional services directory that's actually kind of separate, but it's all in one place. So
Mm-hmm.
you have the products and stuff and just like regular services, and then professional services where you have a directory for physicians, attorneys, and accountants, so that you
Wow.
can, have all the things that you need to live your best life. And that was
Mm-hmm.
also important for me as well, because when I was looking for stuff that I needed for the business, I couldn't find a black attorney. Like I couldn't find one. And when
Wow.
I was speaking to a lawyer about, and oh right, about the copyright stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and he was Caucasian, and I found myself holding back parts of the business. Like I didn't want to. It's more like I just didn't want to be bothered with trying to explain. Like I
Mm.
felt like he wouldn't get it. So I just didn't really tell him about the business. I was like, yeah, it's just a collection of stuff. And yeah, like I just made it this very vague
Wow.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was only when I was done, I was like, I didn't even plan to do that when I had the meeting. It just is
Mm-hmm.
what came out because I didn't want to have to explain. And that's kind of the thing. It's not that I want or need every single thing in my life to only be black. If that's what you want, that's great. But if you don't, that's great as well. But sometimes you just don't want to have to explain. Like you just want somebody
Yeah.
who gets it. And I wanted to try to bring those people together so that, it's not just this going in Facebook groups and be like, I need a lawyer, somebody help me, which I'm in Facebook groups and it's a weekly occurrence.
Mhm.
Anybody, any recommendations for a black dot dot dot, right?
Mhm.
So it's just to kind of address that need,
Mhm.
and you know, just to have everything. And I have like such big visions for this thing. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
so
I have big
that's
visions for you. Holy
yeah,
smokes.
thank you.
Mhm. Mhm. Of
Yeah,
course.
so those are like the why. There are a lot of stuff, very random things. There's a girl who dies young. I talk about her all the time just because
Mhm.
when I found her business, I thought it was so random. And it creating the business and curating the directory opened my eyes to all the things that I'm preaching, right? It's just like there's so many Black people doing all these random things that you would never even think about as quote unquote Black.
Yeah.
Um, and she dies young, and it makes it looks like it was spun, like hand spun, and like people buy it and they make sweaters like the sweater you're wearing right now. Like, so I
Mhm.
just was like, this is so random and so great. I loved it. Like I reached out to her immediately and I was like, please, can I list you?
Yeah.
So you're gonna find um all sorts of products, but the theme for the product side is these businesses are very proudly Black owned. They are very
Mm.
clearly for Black people,
Yeah.
or explicitly, like they say, you know, you know, either you look at it and you kind of know, or they say it. Um, and that was all very intentional.
Wow. I love that, and what you said there about you not wanting to explain yourself, I
Yeah,
think is so all encompassing. And I also don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but as an outsider, my perception is that that must be so all encompassing of the experience of so many Black individuals, right?
yeah,
One of the previous guests on the podcast, Micheline Khan, who she is the founder of therapy, which helps BIPOC individuals
mm,
find therapists of color or
right,
that relate to them in some way,
right,
because of this gap in the therapy world, and I'm
right,
sure in many other places in society, where
right,
people of color, and in your case, Black individuals,
right,
don't feel seen. And
yeah,
there's always the argument of, well, you're going to have to explain your story anyways, or you're going to have to explain
right,
yourself anyways. But sometimes when your resources are short and you're
yeah,
exhausted, you just don't want to. And you just want somebody to
yeah,
say, like, ah, I get you,
yeah,
whether that's therapy, whether that's hair, whether that's makeup, whether
right,
that's clothing. Um,
right,
and I love that you, being somebody that has experienced that, that you were able to tailor the service to serve that
yeah,
thing specifically, because I can only imagine how much that might limit you, that feeling of not wanting to explain yourself to somebody
yeah,
might limit you in the sources that you seek on a day-to-day, whether that's like a doctor or a therapist or
yeah,
somebody to tailor your dress.
right,
So I love that you made it with that vision in mind for your
yeah.
clients. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was really important to me, and I also acknowledge, like you hear me mention a couple times, that I'm privileged, because I feel like ignoring it is part of the problem with the world, is that people ignore their privilege and it causes you
Mm-hmm.
to act a certain way, and also it changes in other people's narratives, because if you're not privileged, you're just normal, then what's wrong with them, right? Why
Mm-hmm.
aren't they achieving XYZ, right? So that's why I mention it so much. And it comes in different forms. Even it's probably weird for some people to hear a Black person talking about privilege, but it exists in
I
different
was
forms,
about to
right?
say, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. That's one. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
doctor. That's a huge one.
Mm-hmm.
And that one is part of why it was important for me to include the directory of doctors on there, because
Mm-hmm.
I know how easy it is for me when my son is, sick or has a rash or whatever. I can pick up my phone. I have two pediatricians that I speak to every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I can just ask, I can send a photo and done. I don't have to worry.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas there are people calling their insurance, they don't even have insurance, they have to Google. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I want to share some of my privilege. I want to be able to, use the resources that I have to collect these names that may not have, otherwise been easily found, and be like,
Mm-hmm.
here you go. You can go ahead and choose, and find whatever it is you need. And yeah, so that's where kind of coming from with that. So there's a couple different, all different paths that led me to creating it and making it what it is.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But I think the general consensus is that you're
Yeah.
trying to tailor to the Black experience, and
Yes.
that's beautiful. I love that.
Yes. Thank you.
Um, yeah, of course. Just to shift gears a little bit so
Hmm.
that we're not running out of time here, I do want to ask you about your experience entering. I guess we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but your experience entering the entrepreneurial space, and this doesn't just have to be as a Black woman. This is just in general, um, kind of the challenges that you ran into, and even what advice you would give to somebody who's also entering the space as a new entrepreneur looking to start a business. What were some of the big obstacles that you came across, and
Yeah.
how did you gain the confidence to overcome them? Anything under that realm?
Yeah. No, it's so crazy for somebody to be asking me about advice about entrepreneurship. It's just like, are you talking to me?
Uh-huh. Yeah, of course. Yes,
Yeah,
I
it's
am.
it's it's crazy. But yeah, so the biggest obstacles for me were within myself, actually. It was
Mm,
mindset.
yeah.
Because for a couple different reasons, but I'm not used to not knowing how to do something, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I trained for a very long time to do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And, we continually learn, we have to,
Yeah.
but it's never something that's brand new. Like I'm not, when I do my continuing medical education, it's not new information that's out of nowhere. Of course, there are
Mm-hmm.
medical breakthroughs that come in and stuff like that, but
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurship is brand new. Very few doctors have any business background at all.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like, well, what am I doing here? And then,
Mm-hmm.
so I definitely got
Mm-hmm.
help, and that's what I would recommend for everybody. You can figure it out on your own. Most people are quite intelligent and they can figure it out, but it'll take you a very long time. So I do
Mm-hmm.
have a business coach. I'm in a coaching program, and I would, you mean, having the resources to do that again is another privilege, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's definitely getting help. Mentors can be free. Having, somebody to help you, I would say, is something I would definitely recommend. It will just shorten your path to getting where you need to be.
Mm-hmm.
But with that came the uncomfortable thing of, yes, well, you have to tell your story and, market your brand with your story. And I was like, what? No, I don't want to do that. Um,
Mm.
so
Mhm.
being on this podcast is one of the biggest hurdles, because I was just like, no, I'm not doing that. I can't go and speak
Really?
in public.
Mhm.
I can't go and put my face on social media. Like, I'm not doing
Mm.
that. And
Mhm.
it was this idea of, well, I'm a professional. I don't, it's, I'm a doctor. I can't really do this. I can't put myself out there. Um, but it was more fair than anything else. It really wasn't about being a professional at all,
Mhm.
because I'm still a professional. I'm doing everything I'm doing, and I'm still going to work and taking care of my patients and doing everything that I need to do.
Mhm.
So it was getting over that kind of fear of putting yourself out there, which I feel like is relatable to anyone who's not an
Mhm.
extrovert, and a lot of people aren't. So,
Mhm.
having that mindset work. And I was never a person that put a lot of credence in mindset work. I was just like, I would hear people talk about it, and I was just like, what is that? Because
Mm.
that's the practical side of me, right? I was just like, you can study it in a book. It's probably, you can figure it out, but you have to, like affirmations and mindset. I was just like, you don't need that.
Mhm.
But it
Mhm.
turns out you do.
Yeah.
And it's very important.
I hope people are writing
Um,
this down. You do need
yes,
it.
yes, you do need it.
Yeah.
And celebrating your wins. And this is all coming in with the mindset things, right? Because It's a very tough journey. There a lot of no's, a
Mhm.
lot of highs and lows. Even within one day, I could be like, yes, this business is the best thing ever. I'm killing it. And the next minute, I'm like, I don't do this anymore. I don't want to just
Mm.
pack this up, shut down the website, I'm done. All within the
Yeah,
same day, right?
totally,
So it
totally.
does take um a lot of strength, and all of that is mental. Um, so I would say, identifying the things that you are fearful about and making sure that you address those before you embark on this journey, or making it a a priority to address, because it's tough. It is
Mhm.
definitely, it's definitely a rough road. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
rough.
Mhm. I I love that a lot, and I love that you are telling people that yes, it's something that you need to do, because I think it really is
Yeah,
something that you need to do, right?
yeah,
How did you I guess overcome how did you get to the point of addressing those fears of telling your story? Because I mean,
yeah,
I'm sitting here and I it sounds to me like you've told your story a million times without fear. And whether that's the case or not,
right.
as an outsider, like I loved hearing it, and I think that you should
Yeah,
keep telling it. Um,
yeah.
but how are you kind of still are you still dealing with that feeling of,
Hmm.
inadequacy or fear about telling your story? And how did
Yeah,
you come to terms with it?
yeah. It was definitely practice, right? And
Mm,
the story itself got easier as I got more comfortable speaking, and putting myself out there and telling it. Because and that was the thing with the mindset, is that I made up this person in my mind that wasn't actually me. This
mm,
conservative position that, didn't like social media, was never on there. And I was just
mm,
like, that's not really me. So it was nothing, no one thing that I did to get over it. It was just being in a supportive group, having the support of my coach and the people that I was with, and pushing through and doing it scared. Eventually, you I mean, if you're serious, I guess you have the mental fortitude to kind of break through and really figure out, what is actually my barrier here? Why am I so against doing this? And it I realized that, like, if you look back, if you knew me when I was an undergrad,
mm-hmm,
I used to have like 15 albums on Facebook at all times. Like, I loved
mm,
taking pictures. Like,
mm-hmm.
and this was when Facebook was just university. I don't know how old you are, but there was a time back in the day when not everybody could get on Facebook. You
Uh-huh.
had to be in university, right? That's
Yeah.
that's when I was on Facebook for the first time. I'm
Yeah.
kind of
Oh,
dating
I was
myself.
too, but I definitely lied
Okay.
about my age. So
Yeah.
it's all good.
So yeah, I would like have all this stuff on there. I did all this adventure stuff. I've been bungee jumping. I dive. Like, I do all this stuff. So I was just like, where did this idea that I'm this conservative person that doesn't like to put yourself out there? So
Mm,
it was really that kind of self examination, and just really sitting and thinking, and sitting with what your fears are, again, coming back to it. And it will come to you. And it just came that it was fair. And if that's all it is, well, you can work through fear, you can do it scared. It's
mm-hmm,
hard, but you can definitely do it. And I still, for this one, I feel like, I don't know, maybe it made me feel really comfortable. I didn't have it as much before this podcast, but when I do, because I do Facebook Lives and stuff, I still get nauseous and anxious about going
mm-hmm.
on there. And then I just
Yeah.
do it anyway, because I don't have a choice. Like, I mean, of course I have a choice,
Ye
but you
uh-huh.
know, I've made a
Mhm,
decision. I said I'm going to be there, so I have to show up. So it's not that
mhm,
it's just went away. I don't think it really goes away completely. And maybe if
mhm.
it does go away, you're not pushing yourself hard enough. Um,
Oh my gosh.
so
Mhm.
yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
that's kind of
everything you
how I
said
got
there.
here.
Yeah, no, that was a lot. That was great.
Yeah, I know.
I
I was
love
just like, I feel that was a very long answer to a short question.
No, 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 no. I was just about to say that everything that you said was music to my ears, because I
Yeah,
love that you said that you did it scared, and
Yeah.
you do it scared because you don't have a choice, right? I
Right.
think that's so important for people to understand at a fundamental level, that the people that you see doing the things that they do, the things that you look up to them for, it's not that
Right.
they've not scared of them anymore. And it's not that they waited until they weren't scared to do
Right.
them, right? Like you can do things scared and still come out the other side and be successful. Or, maybe you
Right.
fail and then you've learned something new, right?
Right.
But it's understanding that if you don't put yourself into discomfort, if you don't submerge yourself in that, you're not going to
Yes.
grow.
Yes.
And I can only speak to my experiences a Latina or somebody who's
Yeah.
not black, but you saying that as a black woman um in the space that you're working in is so incredible for me to hear, and
Yeah.
as an outsider again, um and I think that's so inspiring to the people who are listening to this, that black or not, you need to go forward knowing who you are and what you're capable of. So
Yeah.
I loved everything you said there.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Do it scared. Just remember
Yes.
that. If you take nothing else, do it scared.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, Dr. Toya, before I let you go, the tradition
Mhm.
on this podcast is at the end of every episode, I do a rapid fire round of 3 questions
Oh
that
my
you have to
gosh.
answer.
Now
And
I'm
it's not
getting
an
nauseous.
you gotta do it scared.
Okay.
And it's
Fine.
not in one word or like
Okay.
one sentence or anything. You just whatever comes to mind, you can answer.
Okay.
So, all right. Are you ready?
No, but okay.
All right. Okay. We'll try the first one. The
Okay.
first question is, what is a song that is currently stuck in your head?
Oh, Baby Shark just came to my head. I have an
Oh,
18-month-old.
oh, yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
Thing is, it was so funny that that came because we
Hmm.
don't even let him listen to that much. But it was literally the first
Really?
song that came to my head. Yeah, and I'm
That's
one of
so
those people
funny.
where I like songs get stuck in my head very easily, and it's just like on
Oh,
replay. So
yeah.
it's so weird that that was the first one that came to mind. It's really funny. Yeah.
Yeah, that is hilarious. I'm sure it's gonna be stuck in the heads of everybody that's listening to this, because it definitely got
I
stuck in mine now. I forgot that the song existed.
sorry.
I love that. No, it's okay. It's okay. I love that. All right. Question number 2 is,
Mhm.
what is a quote that inspires you every day?
It's supposed to be rapid, but I'm just
Oh, it's okay.
like, well, it's kind of a longer quote, and it kind of goes with my story for the business. I
Hmm.
don't know if you know who Ava DuVernay is. Do you?
I do not. No.
No. So she's a director, world class director. She makes a lot of films that have black protagonists and stuff like that. I don't want to call them black films because I have a that's a whole other podcast topic. But the
Mm-hmm.
she did Selma and a couple other amazing projects. But
Okay.
she was speaking about being a writer, and she says that when I write, a man walks into a room, she's like, I mean a black man. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
this is my standard. Like, this is where my frame of mind is. Men, when I say a man, it's a black man, right? So it's like whatever you assume when you read my work, that's on you. But it's just like this is my baseline. Is that
Mm.
black is the standard. Of course, I'm butchering what she said, but that
It's
that
okay.
the
Mm-hmm.
first part is what she actually said. She's like, when I write and I say a man walks in the room, it's a black man. And that always stuck with me. I love that she said that. And it's kind of, the same way that I operate and what are my values and my goals with the directory. So yeah, that's one that I love.
Mm. I love that. I think
Yeah.
that is very complimentary to your story. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. The
It's no
third
problem.
question, and the reason why I love this rapid fire round, is because the third question is always different for everybody. So the first two are the
Gotcha.
same, the third one is different. So
Okay.
my third question for you is, what does it mean to be Dr. Toya?
Oh my gosh. Oh, what does it mean? It being a really good wife and mother and sister and daughter, that's like the most important thing to me. And I don't think I
Mhm.
realized how important it was before COVID, right? Because
Mm. Mhm.
yeah, I always loved going home and I always loved, being in Trinidad. I hadn't not been home more than a year in my life until COVID.
Mhm. Mm.
I went home in October of 2019, and that was the last time I went home. That was the last time I saw my mom, my dad,
Mhm.
my sisters. Um, so the importance of kind of family and being a member of my family, I feel like I don't think it was always important because I have a big family and we were always close, but
Mhm.
the realization that, wow, this is really important kind of,
Yeah.
really hit home in the last year or 2 years, I should say.
Mhm.
So being Dr. Toya, yes, I'm a doctor, but that's just one small piece of all of who I am. And,
Yeah.
everything else is equally, if not more important to being who I am.
Yeah. I love that. I
I feel
love
like
that.
my
Thank you.
answers went fun.
No, no, no,
All
no, no, no. I
serious.
was just about to say that I absolutely love I love what you just said there, especially because I feel like people are so tied to the career that they choose,
Yeah,
where it's MD, where it's PhD, whether it's
right.
whatever else you have in your title. It's such a small fraction of who you actually are.
Yeah,
And so I love that you put your family
yeah,
as your sense of meaning. So
yeah,
that's beautiful. Hmm.
yeah.
Dr.
Thank
Toya, can you tell us where our listeners can find you and your
you.
business
Yes.
once they leave this podcast?
Yes. So you can find us at bydefault.com. It's BUYDEFAULT. And shout out to my husband for choosing the name. So I knew I
Nice.
wanted it to be, by default, like Black by default, but he's the one that said put the U in there. And I thought that was kind of
Mm,
like a cute thing. Yeah. So it's
yeah.
bydefault.com. And on Instagram, we are BUY_default. The whole thing was taken, Instagram, you can't have two. And then
Hmm.
on Facebook, it's all one word by default. So you can
Awesome.
find us on those platforms. We have a YouTube channel as well where I do interviews with the business owners so that they can tell a little bit of their story as well. Just more things to. So even though I'm about the user, I am about the businesses as well. I want to get
Hmm.
there, get them
Totally.
out there. So just more
Hmm.
brand visibility. So I do those interviews, and I'll be starting some new interviews with some of the physicians next year as well. So
Awesome.
that will be really fun to look out for us on YouTube. So
Sweet. I'm very much looking forward to all those interviews when I watch them. And I will also
yeah,
link everything that you just said there in the description so
yeah,
you guys can access it a little bit more easily.
yeah.
Uh, Dr. Toya, thank you so much for being here, for telling us your story, for everything that you had to say. And I look forward to talking to you again very soon, hopefully.
Yes, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Mariana. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the podcast, you guys. I hope that you enjoyed that conversation between Toya and I as much as I did. And I will certainly be using the mantra, do it scared, for the rest of my days. So, if you enjoyed that episode and you want to hear more, you can leave a rating, subscribe to the podcast to make sure that you get the latest updates, and so this reaches more people as well. You can forward it to a friend if you think you know somebody that would benefit from it. And don't forget to follow the podcast on Instagram and Facebook. It's at Commitment to Growth Podcast. And you can also subscribe to the Commitment to newsletter if you want to get more sources of personal development right in your inbox every single week. So again, that's the Commitment to Growth newsletter. Comes out every Thursday. You can hit the link in my bio on Instagram to subscribe today. And as well, if you didn't tune in last week, you will have missed that I released a free workbook downloadable resource for you called the Get Unstuck workbook that you can also head over to the link in my bio on Instagram to download. It's basically a short little guided practice for you to try out when you are stuck in a rut and you want some prompts to ask yourself to help you get out of that stuck state. So if you're interested, go check it out. Leave me a comment if you try. I would love to know how that experience was for you, because it certainly has been very helpful for me. And until the next episode, have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next time.